Welcome to another episode of the Optimistic Met Fan Podcast. I'm your host, Frank Arsberger, and on today's show, I wanted to talk a little bit about Carlos Mendoza and David Stearns. And the topic I wanted to talk about was the fan base and, how the fan base has been reacting lately to a lot of what's been going on with the Mets. So, you know, with this record the way it is and the way we've been playing lately, uh, right now we just have a few game lead in the wild card race. The social media has been going crazy, right? I mean, I've seen it. You guys have seen it. Uh, calling for heads. Mendoza can't manage. You need to fire him after the season. We need to fire Stearns because he didn't do a good enough job. What else? You have, you know, let's fire the hitting coach. Let's fire the pitching coach. I wanted to debate that a little bit. Not really debate it, but let's go over it a little bit. Because I think there's a lot of positives with the guys that we have. But I'm going to be fair and let's do a little bit of the pros and cons. So I wanted to start with Stearns. I like the GM and the president of baseball operations that we have. I think he's done a good job. I am going to be fair and say that he's had a couple of missteps. But overall, I think he's done a great job. I think, you know, he re signed Pete Alonso, even though it took a really long time. I think he was fair with what he gave Pete. I don't think he didn't want to let Pete walk, but at the same time, I think he wanted to, get the right deal for the New York Mets. I think he's a businessman first with that. I think he looks at the market. He tests free agency. He says, hey, you know what? You go and you see what you can get. And that's what David Stearns and Steve Cohen did. And at the end of the day, they re signed Pete. So, you got to give that up to Stearns. So that was a positive in my book. Another positive was he re signed Sean Manaea. Now, look, I know that's going to get a couple of eye rolls, but everybody wanted Sean Manaea back. I remember around Christmas time, getting the alert that Sean Manaea had re signed. And I was pretty happy about that. Mostly because of what he did last year. And we needed a veteran presence in that rotation, along with Kodai Senga coming back healthy. Has the deal worked out yet? No. I'm going to get into Sean Manaea at a later time, but you know, we wanted him back, so that's another plus. That I look at and I say, David Stearns did a hell of a job getting that done. Um, you know, if you want to go back even further, he's done things outside the book with the rotation. I know a lot of guys wanted a frontline starter, so and I'll get into that as one of my negatives. But right now, looking at positives now, you look at another pro with David Stearns. He was able to get pitchers last year. Guys like Sean Manaea, guys like Luis Severino, Jose Quintana, and it worked. I mean, we got to the playoffs. Yes, it was a grind, but through 162 games, he was right with getting these type journeyman type guys that can give you innings. And then everybody loved him. They said, "Oh, he's the boy genius." They were cracking jokes saying, "Oh, you know what? In Stearns we trust because he got us a really great rotation." That in itself should tell you that he's a good GM in what he's trying to do. I mean, yes, you want that frontline starter, but at the end of the day, he proved everybody wrong because it's the end game that counts. I don't necessarily think it's, oh, you got to get huge signings to be a good GM. I think it's also sometimes you got to use your brains and say, I don't want to spend $30 million on somebody. That's another plus. He didn't waste money on Corbin Burns, who I personally wanted. I wanted Corbin Burns. I know a lot of other friends of mine wanted Corbin Burns. The guy is just an innings eater, and he's a beast on the mound. But look, now he has Tommy John. He's going to be out next year. So, Diamondbacks spent all that money and really didn't get anything for their buck the first 2 years of that contract, you can say. So, yes, he dodged a bullet with that, and you can say, oh, that's luck because you can't really look for injuries to happen. I'm not saying that that's why David Stearns didn't get him. What I'm saying is, you know, he he's not going to overpay for pitching after a certain point in a guy's career. So if he's on the other side of 30, 31, 32, that's not David Stearns' MO. He's never going to be that guy to, you know, waste money on someone who he feels is on the other side of their career. He's just not going to do that. So I don't think we can fault him for that. That's who David Stearns is. That's going to be what he does as the Met GM. He's going to try to go young, athletic. He's going to try to, and he did try to, another positive was look at what he tried to do at the beginning of last year when he was first time as a GM in 2024. He tried to get Yamamoto, the pitcher that the Dodgers signed. He tried to. Gave him one hell of a contract offer. So did the Yankees. But guess what? Yamamoto used the Mets and the Yankees to raise up his price, and he went to the Dodgers. He wanted to pitch with Ohtani and play with Ohtani. That's what he wanted to do. So you can't fault David Stearns for that. Look at another positive, the trades that he made at the deadline. Having to bolster up that bullpen. Last year, made good signings. You could disagree with me if you want, but the facts are, last year's deadline, he got Ryan Stanek and he got Phil Maton, two guys that helped us get to the postseason. More so Phil Maton, who had a really good regular season and helped bridge us to Edwin Diaz. But then he went out and got Ryan Stanek, who everybody remembers he was awesome in the playoffs. So, to say that he's not a good GM because of what's going on this year is just, to me, ridiculous. All those things that I just laid out for you. Also, even this year, I'm going to double down on the trade market. I think he did the best job that he could have. And he got us some really good players. Have they worked out yet? Other than Rodgers, who I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, but Rodgers, you had to give up all that to get Rodgers. That was a bad trade. You don't know if it's a bad trade yet because the season didn't end yet. If the Mets go all the way back to the National League Championship Series or go to the World Series and win the World Series, was it a bad trade? So talk to me at the end of the year about that, about trading for Rodgers and giving up Drew Gilbert, who I still think is going to be a good outfielder, not a great one. I don't think he's going to be a PCA. I know he's had a couple of really good games, and if you look at his overall stats, you're going to say, "Oh, Frank, you're crazy." Gilbert's killing it. He's really not. He had a couple of good games that boosted up his stats. He's hot and cold, Drew Gilbert. So, I'm still hanging my hat on that was a good trade with to get Rodgers. Rodgers has been really good out of the bullpen. I know he's a low, you know, uh, submarine type pitcher who's gonna not wow you or anything, but he gets the outs, and I think that's the most important thing. He's solid in the bullpen. Another guy that I think everybody wanted before he stunk it up was Ryan Helsley. Okay, that was a good trade when it was made. Okay, you can't look at it now and go, "Oh, David Stearns don't know what he's doing," because all of us would have traded for Ryan Helsley at the deadline. Every single one of us, if we were a GM, would have signed up for that. Having Ryan Helsley as the eighth inning guy to get to Diaz, we all loved it. We were all texting our friends saying how much we loved it. Let's not lie to ourselves and say that was a bad trade. It was a bad trade because Helsley's not pitching well. It wasn't a bad trade because of what we were trying to do. And that's my whole point. Is we're killing this guy, and we're killing, and I'm going to get to the Mendoza stuff in a little while. We're killing these guys because of the results, and that's not fair. You can't do that because if you look at even getting a guy like Gregory Soto, he's been pretty good. Had a couple of bad outings. I'll admit that he has. He hasn't been lights out either, but he did try to improve the bullpen. So you can't say that he didn't do that because he did. He David Stearns did his best at the deadline, do what he had to do. He knew we needed bullpen guys. He didn't get us just one or two. He got us three. And then, you know what? Even with moves that he made when he was finding these guys off the scrap heap, like Reed Garrett, like he's found good quality guys to throw in the bullpen. So you can't say that David Stearns didn't do a good job. You know, you guys got to be crazy to tell me that. Then, on top of that, he doesn't trade away Mark Vientos to the White Sox when the White Sox wanted Mark Vientos for that Luis Robert guy who I didn't want. I didn't want Cedric Mullins either, but I knew that the Mets needed an outfield presence. I knew that they needed help. That trade hasn't worked out at all either. You know, Cedric Mullins is okay. He's not great. But you know what? Hopefully we can get Tyrone Taylor back to solidify center field, get that defense to improve. He was doing good with the bat before he hurt his hamstring. So, I mean, that depth with Mullins and Taylor will be good. I think Cedric Mullins will still have some type of impact on this team. And again, he didn't give up anything to get Mullins. So, you know, it was either that or get nobody. So again, I just think that he is doing the best job that he can. And then look at what he did in free agency too. Everybody forgets that you got Juan frickin' Soto here. And, you know, I know everybody's going to say, oh, but that's because of the checkbook of the owner, Steve Cohen. Okay, but the GM still has to write that check and still has to, you know, cash it in. So, you know, and when he first got the job, if you guys caught that documentary, that was the main plan when they came. Okay, we're a team now. You got me as your GM, your president of baseball operations, whatever you want to call it. What move are we going to make, boss? And Steve Cohen goes, go out and let's get Soto. So that's what they did. So how do you say that he's a bad GM? He's gotten us the biggest free agents since he's been here, you know, um, in the 2 years that he's been here, at least with Juan Soto. I think, or even he's made me believe that going forward, we're now going to get a lot of these guys because of his savvy, you know, at the winter meetings, you know, signing guys and trading for guys, with his ability at the deadline to know what the Mets need to do to be better, or at least to try to get better. He's done that two trade deadlines in a row. What else do you guys want? I mean, I know you want the championship like I do, but this mindset of, oh, if it doesn't happen today, it's no good. Well, we're still in September. The playoffs didn't happen yet. I think once the Mets get to the playoffs, they're built more for the playoffs. I don't really think that they're built for the regular season. And I thought about that, you know, with the young guys coming up, that even David Stearns didn't trade away. So that's, you know, to go on that with the trades that he made. A lot of the trades that you guys wanted David Stearns to make that you're calling for his head means we weren't going to have Nolan McLean. It means we weren't going to have Brandon Sproat. It means we possibly couldn't have Jonah Tong. Because guess who was calling for that guy? The Miami Marlins were calling for him. We wanted Sandy Alcantara. They wanted Tong and they wanted Jet Williams. That's actually a fact. You could look it up. That would have been a terrible trade for the Mets because actually, it, looking at it, yes, you needed an ace. You needed a big time guy. But to give up all of that talent, and it wasn't just Tong and Jet. It was Tong, Jet Williams, and a bunch of other guys. That would have really ticked the Met fans off. And that me personally, I would then be on the bandwagon with you guys saying that he needed to get fired because there's no way you trade away all that talent for one guy. Um, Not when you have this farm system that the Mets have. So I think he's held it in check. Speaking of guys that he drafted, uh, Carson Bench, just to prove my point that I think David Stearns is the right guy. Carson Bench, outfielder, future center fielder, hopefully, already in AAA. That was a guy that David Stearns, that was his first draft pick. Another guy that he drafted, Jonathan Santucci, in AA, a pitcher, looking really good, starting to put it together his first year in the farm system. Look forward to him in another year or two. You got Eli Serrano, another outfielder in Brooklyn, you know, killing it right now. Nice, really young outfielder also. Will Watson, a guy that I mentioned before in the podcast, uh, in AA, a pitcher, doing really well. That's another David Stearns guy that he drafted. And Ryan Lambert, a guy who I was texting a buddy of mine. I said, this dude is going to be awesome. And he's one of these guys that everybody's going to be wowed about once he does make it to Citi Field, coming out of that bullpen. a big right-handed pitcher that I think would really boost this bullpen going forward in the years to come. I mean, these are all David Stearns moves and guys. Now, yeah, you could say, oh, but the guys that have come up now aren't David Stearns guys, and that's what counts. No, it doesn't, because I look at longevity. I look at the fact that the Mets now have a farm system that's going to be churning out guys left and right year after year after year, and that's because of David Stearns and his guidance and the fact that he knows how to build the team. Look at what he did with the Brooklyn, with the not the Brooklyn, the Milwaukee Brewers. I'm sorry. Look at what he did with them. Now they're on the verge of being the best team in baseball. At least record-wise. That's because of David Stearns. Wake up, people! Like, we have a good GM. I don't know what else you guys want. Now, going on the other part of this cast today, let me just get my notes here. I'm going to go with some negatives too about David Stearns because I did say I was going to give you some cons. Now, the cons, okay, Montas, I was completely wrong about Frankie Montas. That was an awful signing. So that's one check in the box for why you would want to get rid of David Stearns. Blackburn was a bad trade, so that was another one. But again, I mean, you're going to justify firing David Stearns because of those two guys when all the other great stuff that he did. I will say one signing that he did do that was really good too. Just to go back to some of the pros, uh, Griffin Canning, another guy that I know a lot of guys forgot about. Everybody laughed at that signing, even I did. I was like, who the heck is this guy? But before he got hurt, he was one of the best pitchers on the staff, and he was doing his thing. He was going to be the next story, like Luis Severino or Sean Manaea. Like, he was that guy that you said, who the heck is this guy? And then he was pitching really good. You can't blame David Stearns for the fact that that guy got hurt. But going back to some of the cons, now that I remembered that one, you can get on him about not signing a big time pitcher because that was the one thing from this past off season that after signing Juan Soto, I actually wanted to. So I get that. I get why there's a lot of fan hate with that. But he knew what he had in the farm system. So again, I mean, if this was his plan, and he's not going to share what his plan is with anybody. He has a great poker face when he gets interviewed on SNY. Then I understand why he didn't do it because you had all these young guys coming up. No, I don't know if that was necessarily the plan this year. Maybe it got pushed because these guys played so great. But yeah, I mean, okay, you want to sell that to me that that's one of the reasons why you want to get rid of David Stearns. He didn't get a big time pitcher. Okay, trades have gotten mixed reviews and results. That's another con. Uh, but unfortunately, that's the name of the business. You're always going to get criticism, even if you do something good, or if you do something bad, or if you do something good. Like I said, if you want to go back to the Ryan Helsley thing, and then it blows up in your face because Ryan Helsley doesn't pitch well. That's not on David Stearns. Sorry, but it's not. That's on Ryan Helsley. That's not on David Stearns. Uh, hasn't found center field mainstay yet. True, he hasn't gotten us a center fielder yet. But, like I had mentioned earlier, Carson Benj is in AAA, and you also have Jet Williams. So I think that either one of those guys will probably be our center fielder come next season at some point. Maybe not at the beginning of the season, but definitely expect those guys in spring training. Expect those guys to make an appearance sometime next season. Manaea could become a bad signing. Now, this one I thought about. Manaea becoming a bad signing could actually happen. Um, he's stunk since he came back from the injury. Let's be honest, guys. I was a big Sean Manaea guy. I still am. I still believe in him. But I think, at least for this season, we have to admit that he can't go deep into games. And I think we also should maybe get creative. Maybe put Sean Manaea in the bullpen. Uh, I don't know. That was just something that came to my head the other night watching him pitch when he was only able to go 3 innings before getting pulled. I said, he was effective, but he wasn't great. Could be effective out of the bullpen come the postseason. So, um, not giving up on Sean Manaea yet. but let's see. Let's give that some time to breathe. I think that would be the fair assessment to go with Sean Murray. But so far, it's not looking good. Now, this last one's kind of interesting because it's going to piggyback something I don't wanted to talk about on a future podcast, but is he relying on his young players too much? And what I mean by that, he brought up McLean, he brought up Tong, he brought up Brandon Sproat, and obviously he's going to bring up more next season. Is he relying on the Mets farm system and his draft picks, like Carson Bench and all these other guys, to right the ship? Um, they're very interesting, I think. Um, is he relying on the young guys? I don't know. I think he has a philosophy in getting young, getting athletic, having guys that they're going to come every single day, every single night to the ballpark with some fire and some heart and some, you know, guys that aren't getting paid the big contracts. I'm not trying to say that guys that get paid big contracts don't have heart, don't play hard. But you know what I mean? When you're this young, hungry kid, you give a little bit more than the other guy. Is David Stearns relying on that a little too much? Uh, I don't know. Maybe he is. But I like it. I like the fact that he's being proactive. He's being kind of innovative, doing things a little bit different. It's a breath of fresh air to me. This is all my opinion. You guys don't have to agree with this. If you guys still think that David Stern should get fired, hit me up in the comments. I'd love to continue these debates on obviously the YouTube chat and also where you guys follow me on TikTok at optimisticmedfan.com. So continue to do that because I think this could be a really good debate. I think David Stern, is doing a hell of a job. I understand you guys want results, but results don't happen, like I said, until, like I told a friend tonight, before coming on here tonight, that results don't happen until October. So, you know, I think Met fans just need to breathe a little bit. I know this season's been a grind. It was a grind last season too. Uh, but yeah, you know, uh, I think there's a lot more pros to David Stearns' run as the GM so far than cons. And, I hope that you guys, look at the stuff that I just laid out for you. And then you guys can make your own decisions. But, people have been calling for Brian Cashman's head for years. And in my opinion, Brian Cashman sticks to his plan, and then he pivots and makes good moves, and then the Yankees win and get to the playoffs. Whether they win a World Series or not, I think is irrelevant with GMs. I think if you put your team in a position to win, you're doing a good job. And David Stearns has done that. So, now on to my guy, my manager, a guy who won me over last season, and a lot of other Met fans' hearts, Carlos Mendoza. Now, I know you guys are going to laugh at that. Oh, he didn't win me over. I never wanted him. All this nonsense that you guys are going to spew. He's a good manager, okay? Is he great? Could he do some stuff that's different? Sure. But I think we all kind of want to judge after the fact, like we all could do better. Um, Even I do sometimes watching the game, and I know you guys do too. Oh, why are you bringing in this guy? You should do this, or why aren't you starting this guy against the lefty and the righty, or whatever you want to say. We're always going to second guess the guy. That's just human nature. I do it too. So that's not really what this is about. It's about giving you guys some pros and cons. So, Mendoza hate. I'm going to start with that first because I want to end the podcast on a positive note. So I'll do the pros last with Mendoza. The negatives that I see, and again, this is just my opinion. Um, I don't think he's handled the pitching staff that well, meaning I think he's in love with pitch counts. Okay. And that's something that I've always been big on. I hate the fact that Major League Baseball as a whole has done that, especially the last 10 years. like they're obsessed with, oh, he's almost at 100, let's take him out. Well, if he's cruising, just let him go. 100, 110 pitches. If he's feeling it and he's getting all the outs and he's controlling the strike zone and he's getting guys out, why help the other team by bringing in another pitcher? I think David Stearns has done that a lot. A lot of that has to do with, though, uh, just to kind of give him kind of a breather with that. I do think that the veterans and some of the pitchers on the staff have kind of forced his hand to do that a little too much this season. Like, obviously, he's going to do that regardless because that's just how baseball is these days. But again, Manaea hasn't helped them at all this year. Senga hasn't helped them at all. McGill can never go deep into games early on in the season. Griffin Canning was always a guy that, even though I said was pitching good, always went 5 innings. You're not really helping your manager when you don't go deep into games. So, you know, that's not all his fault. But again, even when the Mets in 2024 were going deeper into games, he would pull the hook a little too quick, or leave a guy in too much. Which I'd rather you do that than take a guy out early. At least then you can justify by saying, "Oh, I left the guy in too long because I trusted him and I wanted to see what he had." When you take him out too early, then there's no excuse. So that's something that Mendoza got to clean up, even for me. So that's a con. Um, Overusing the bullpen again is going to piggyback off of the fact that this year especially, I don't think he's had a choice. I think it's just what is with this Met pitching staff as a whole. It has gotten better with the young guys coming up, so that's good. But, we'll see. I mean, hopefully he learns to trust his pitchers a little bit better. Um, Mixing up the lineups. Now, when I say mixing up the lineups, I mean the batting order. Okay. Other than Lindor leading off and Soto batting second, there was a time when Soto was batting third and Pete was fourth, and they were mixing in guys in the 2-hole. Just leave guys where they're supposed to hit. Could you please? Like, I understand you want to, not have back-to-back lefties in the lineup or too many righties or whatever the case may be back-to-back. I get that. But then leave guys in a certain spot. Say, okay, you're my leadoff hitter. You're my number 2 hitter. You're my 3rd hitter, 4th hitter. Understand that certain nights you're going to have righty, lefty when Lindor is switch hitting and he's batting righty. Or you're going to have back-to-back lefties when you have Lindor, Soto, and Pete. You're going to have the 2 lefties to start off the game, and then you're going to go to Pete. Then if you want to go to another right-handed hitter, you could put Vientos batting cleanup. I also think that Nemo's been kind of used in a weird way this year, which has kind of hurt his game a little bit. That's just my personal opinion as far as the lineups go with the way that Mendoza has done it. I think Nemo should be a top of the order hitter, but with the guys that they have, it's kind of been a rough go this season for Nemo, finding a spot for him in a lineup that he feels comfortable in. And that's going to be something that the Mets are going to have to look at next season. But this year, it is what it is. They're going to have to mix and match and just put Nemo in different spots where they seem fit. So that's a little bit of a con for me with Mendoza. But now some positives. Okay, he has a clubhouse that believes in him. Okay, all the players love him, maybe to a fault, but that to me is a signal of a good manager. That's last year when the team believed in him and understood, okay, we are going through a tough stretch at the beginning of the season. He kept everybody at ease, kept the clubhouse at ease. Everybody just stayed within themselves, and then we had that magical run. That's because of Mendoza. I understand people are going to say that's because, OMG came up and JD Martinez started to hit and he came up and Vientos and all this other stuff. That's true. Those guys did have a big impact. But remember, the manager is the one who keeps the clubhouse together. Okay? The manager is the one who manages all those personalities and keeps everybody in check, keeps everybody happy, keeps everybody at ease. When a guy's slumping, he talks to him and believes in him. He doesn't just bench him. You know, that's not a good manager. A good manager is a guy who believes in his players, doesn't bench a guy just because he's slumping, believes in him and says, hey, you're Francisco Lindor or you're Pete Alonso. You know what? You're 0 for 20, but you're still going to play today. Like, I believe in you. I do believe that players relate to that and they respond to that. So that to me is a plus. Speaking of personalities, he lets guys be who they are. How many times do we see other teams like the Yankees? Everybody got to be the same way. Business. Let's not be yourself. You're not allowed to have fun. You're not allowed to joke in the dugout. You're not allowed to have fun in the clubhouse. No, you are. This is still the game. This is still baseball. You can be a kid in the dugout. You can be goofy. You can do stuff. Mendoza lets all his guys be who they are. If you're serious, then be serious. Be you. If you're Mr. Smiles, Francisco Lindor, and you want to laugh all day and you want to be Smiles, is that your personality? Then go. Be who you are. That's what Carlos Mendoza does. So again, that's a plus. He trusts his veterans to lead. He lets them have closed doors meetings. Not a lot of managers let their teams do that. Now you can disagree and say, oh, he's letting them walk all over him. He trusts that the veterans are going to be the veterans and that the veterans are going to step up. Sometimes you have to delegate as a leader. This is coming from a guy who used to supervise a whole staff. A good leader is a guy who trusts the people under him to do the right thing. Mendoza does that. He has this us against the world mentality. That speech during the playoffs in 2024, it hit the heart right here. You can't tell me that you guys didn't get emotional when he was saying it was us against the world and nobody believed in anybody but us. And look at us now in the National League Championship. This guy knows what he's doing. Trust in what this guy's trying to do. Yes, there's going to be bumps in the road. Yes, we're going to get losing streaks. Yes, sometimes you're going to have a month where you can't do anything right as a team. That's everybody. Even the Dodgers and the Yankees struggle. Just because the team struggles a little bit, you want to fire the guy after getting to the National League Championship Series? Are you guys crazy? Speaking of letting his players be who they are, he also protects them in the media every post game, even when the Mets are losing. When the media tries to bait him into talking bad about a player, he says every single post game, I am not going to point the finger. We don't do that. We're a family. We don't do that stuff. He protects everybody. He gives that big Papa Bear mentality when he's on that podium during the post game. I like it. I don't like guys that just say the stupid stuff. We had that in Buck Showalter, Mr. I'm going to go by the book, and I'm going to be boring. I don't want that. I like who we have. Let's give this guy some time to grow. A lot of the young players like him too, and that's important. Because like I said, we're just going to keep bringing young guys up. You need that type of manager that could handle all of that. And lastly, he's had a winning record since he's been here. 89 and 73 last season. 76 and 68 now. He's a good manager. Yes, he's struggling a little bit. Every manager struggles when you don't have a complete team or if your veterans aren't playing well. But he's going to get us to the promised land. At least I believe that. Maybe I'm drinking some Kool-Aid that none of you guys are drinking. But, first year as a manager getting you to the National League Championship Series, you don't fire that guy. Okay? Steve Cohen isn't, who's that idiot that owns the Knicks? Dolan, firing Thibodeau after getting to the Eastern Conference Finals. This is why the Knicks are going where they're going, downhill, and why the Mets are going uphill. Every single year we're getting better under this management. I believe in them, and I'm going to continue to believe in them. You know, these are the dog days of summer. This is the pennant race in September. It wasn't supposed to be easy. This is where fans wanted the Mets to be. Every single year getting to the postseason. It's not a cakewalk. It's not just going to be given to us on a silver platter. But we're in the fight, and that's what I'm trying to say. With this GM and this manager, we have a shot. Now let's go take it. I know that's a little corny little pep talk at the end there, but it's the truth. You know, let's get to October. Let's roll with these young kids. Let's get this offense going again. And let's just try to stay as positive as we can, even though it's been a rough ride. That is it, I think, for today's episode. I thank you guys for joining me. And like always, let's go Mets and stay amazing. I will see you guys next episode. Take care.